My name is Adam, but you might know me as DJ AM.
What you may not know about me
Is that I'm a recovering drug addict.
now, I've met with 8 addicts who desperately need help. Some will change, others won't. But I have to keep on trying because everyone deserves a second chance.
There's one reason I'm doing this show, to help other people get sober.
On August 26, 2009, Adam Goldstein, the wildly popular DJ who performed under the stage name DJ AM and became one of the most influential and well-known members of a class of talented DJs that took over the music scene in the early 2000s, got a visit from his manager and sponsor at his New York City apartment. Both were concerned enough about their famous client's recent behavior — AM had been missing appointments and acting erratically in recent weeks — to take the red-eye flight to check in on him at his Soho apartment. Goldstein refused to see his manager, but did allow his sponsor inside, who later said that he saw AM casually light up a crack pipe and pop a bunch of pills. It was a horrifying display for the sponsor, especially given Goldstein's profound addiction issues over the past 2 decades. Growing up in the Los Angeles DJ scene, AM was no stranger to drugs, using everything from cocaine and marijuana at social gatherings to harder drugs like MDMA and nitrous oxide that fueled rave-filled nights on the scene. By 20, he'd be hooked on crack cocaine, descending into a life of full-blown drug addiction and self-destructive behavior, disappearing from family for days at a time and even attempting suicide in 1997 by jamming a gun in his mouth and pulling the trigger. Thankfully, the gun didn't fire, but it served as a huge wake-up call for the talented DJ, who then started to commit himself to battling the addiction problems that now had a stranglehold on his life. AM would later say the moment the gun misfired, he thought to himself, "Are you kidding me? I'm such a fucking failure, I can't even kill myself." Recovery was not a linear process, but Goldstein started going to meetings and distancing himself from the most drug-addled peers in his circles. But it almost immediately started paying dividends for him professionally, as he started booking gigs at every major club and even gaining a following. Performing his sets sober took some getting used to, but Goldstein realized that his sudden meteoric rise as a DJ was undeniably linked to getting his life under control. He started working out, lost a bunch of weight, and practiced his craft, honing his skills to such an extent that he started fielding offers to perform at A-list celebrity birthday parties for everyone from Tom Cruise to Leonardo DiCaprio. There would be relapses along the way. The temptations for a recovering addict that attend a celebrity DJ's lifestyle are as close to unavoidable as one can imagine, as it is quite literally a life surrounded by food, drugs, women, and partying late into the night. But AM seemed to have the perspective of a middle-aged man by his mid-30s. It was as if he'd learned to channel his traumas and worst tendencies into a productive passion behind the turntables, turning that childhood passion triggered by watching Herbie Hancock perform Rocket at the 1984 Grammys into a prosperous career of his own. And by 34, he had nearly a decade of sobriety under his belt, but would still say, quote, "Every day I have to remind myself that no matter how much time I have behind me, I'm still a drug addict. At any given moment, I'm 5 seconds away from walking up to someone, grabbing their drink out of their hand and downing it. And if I do that, within a week tops, I'll be smoking crack. So even though I have this crazy, fabulous life, I have to hold on to the ground, gripping the grass with both hands." But everything would change in an instant for AM when he boarded a Learjet with Blink-182 drummer Travis Barker on September 19, 2008, following a college event in South Carolina. He and Barker had been working together and gaining popularity ever since a performance at the 2008 MTV Video Music Awards. The flight was bound for Van Nuys, California. Upon takeoff, however, several tires punctured, causing the captain to abort takeoff while the aircraft was careening down the runway at 166 miles per hour, crashing through an airport boundary fence before bursting into flames. Both pilots and 2 passengers were killed in the crash, but Barker and Goldstein survived, suffering severe 2nd and 3rd degree burns. Barker was burned over 65% of his body and spent 11 weeks in the hospital, experiencing severe PTSD that would cause him to avoid planes for more than a decade. Goldstein would also develop a severe fear of flying after the incident, but the drugs prescribed for his anxiety and pain management posed the greatest threat to his life. Drew Pinsky, an addiction specialist who treated scores of celebrities over the years, said the prescriptions opened the floodgates to AM's relapse. And just 11 months after the crash, Goldstein would be gone. A close friend would say, quote, "I think the plane crash killed him. It just took a year for it to do it." DJ AM was just 36 years old. I'm Derek Kaufman.
I'm Jason Beckerman.
And this is Last Days, DJ AM.
During his final meeting with his recovery sponsor just 2 days before his death, AM promised to check himself into the rehab clinic in California after performing a scheduled gig at Rain nightclub and Palms Casino Resort in Las Vegas. He would never make it to the final performance. On Friday, August 28th, Goldstein missed his flight to Vegas and didn't return phone calls, prompting friends to call the cops for a welfare check. AM was discovered dead from an apparent overdose, and his apartment was littered with small plastic bags filled with painkillers like Vicodin and anti-anxiety medications like Xanax. The toxicology report from the New York Medical Examiner's Office would confirm what was obvious to everyone. Goldstein had died from a drug overdose. Specifically, his cause of death was listed as acute intoxication from a lengthy list of drugs in his system, including cocaine, the painkillers oxycodone and hydrocodone, lorazepam, the anti-anxiety drug sold under the brand name Ativan, clonazepam, the bipolar and anxiety medication often sold under the name Klonopin, alprazolam, another anti-anxiety medication sold under the brand name Xanax, diphenhydramine, an antihistamine, and levamisole, a drug used to treat parasitic worms. Although some reports attributed his relapse to a breakup with girlfriend Haley Wood, she denied the rumors and insisted they were still together at the time of his death.
The rumors about a breakup leading to his relapse were not only cruel and reckless, they were also almost certainly false. AM had battled drug addiction for nearly his entire adult life, experiencing extended periods of sobriety and personal and professional success. But the plane crash changed everything. The traumatic scene of that crash is difficult to comprehend. AM had been sleeping at the time of the crash and woke up to Travis Barker screaming at the top of his lungs. Barker's assistant and a security guard had been killed upon impact, and the pilot and co-pilot died from smoke inhalation and burns just minutes after the crash. Barker opened the plane door and slid down the wing, and Goldstein followed him. Goldstein, when he left the plane, was engulfed in flames and rolled on the ground to put them out. Barker said he was covered in jet fuel and started ripping his clothes off before finally rolling around on the ground himself to put out the fire.
This was an insanely infamous event in the life, obviously, of Travis Barker, who's now gone on, continued his music career, married to Kourtney Kardashian, the whole thing. But they will forever be linked. I remember the event very, very vividly. Those two will forever be linked. It still haunts Travis Barker to this day. He talked openly. He had an interview with TMZ Once Upon a Time where he talked very openly about the trauma that he suffered. Travis Barker's covered in tattoos that cover much of the scarring that obviously his body was badly burned.
The scene sounds so jarring the way DJM would play it out, that he was sleeping, and you're startled into obviously being very alert all of a sudden with people screaming and smoke filling the cabin, and two people had already died.
Body catches fire and he's rolling around. I mean, it's just it's horrific.
It's a horrific
to think about. And obviously, they were both tremendously traumatized by the ordeal.
That's absolutely right. Barker suffered burns to 65% of his body and stayed in the hospital for nearly 3 months to recover, not to mention dealing with the PTSD that I mentioned earlier and a pronounced fear of flying that kept him off planes until August of 2021, which he chronicled with Kourtney Kardashian, his now wife. Goldstein was prescribed a slew of painkillers and anti-anxiety meds after the crash, a recipe for disaster for a person still and always battling addiction. Unlike Barker, he resolved to deal with the fear of flying by taking those anti-anxiety meds so he could continue taking the regular flights required for a professional DJ booked all over the world for gigs. His decision to rush back to his former life with the help of prescription drugs to deal with the pain and anxiety caused by the crash really did prove tragic.
It's this guy who's got this penchant for drug addiction as it is, his huge history of drug addiction, is all of a sudden given license to take as many drugs as necessary to deal with the horrific impact.
Yeah, he needed it. I don't want to underscore that when you are horrifically burned and they prescribe you pain medication, you need it.
But that was a recipe, and I'm sure everybody around him knew at that time, oh my God, this can't end well. We know who he is. We know the kinds of addictions that he has. The idea that he's going to be on these incredibly powerful pain medications, anti-anxiety meds in order to fly, that this is going to work out, that he's going to be able to turn it off once he gets over the trauma. It was implausible to think that would end well. It was. Yeah. Both Barker and Goldstein, as well as estates for two of the deceased victims of the crash, filed lawsuits against Learjet, the tire manufacturer Goodyear, and in Goldstein's case, the estates of the dead pilots. Barker settled his case out of court in December 2009, although the terms of the settlement remained confidential. The estate of DJ AM also confidentially settled the lawsuits in January of 2010. DJ AM's very real struggles and death in 2009 did have a silver lining in raising awareness about the issue of drug addiction. The DJ AM Memorial Fund was launched in his memory, auctioning off 800 pairs of his sneakers on eBay to raise money for the organization designed to help people battling addiction. And in August 2011, several DJs paid tribute to Goldstein at the Vanity nightclub at the Hard Rock Casino in Vegas, raising money for the organization. Let's take a quick break. More on the legacy of DJ AM when we come back.
This episode of Last Days is brought to you by Air Doctor, a product I know very well, Jason. I have these units throughout my house, and I swear by them.
Yeah, Derek, these air purifiers are incredible. Americans take about 20,000 breaths a day and spend an average of 90% of their time indoors. The indoor air that we breathe can be up to 100 times more polluted than outdoor air, according to the EPA. Indoor air pollutants can cause respiratory symptoms like sneezing, congestion, scratchy throat, and even more serious health problems like lung and heart disease.
So what's the solution? Introducing Air Doctor, the air purifier that filters out 99.99% of dangerous contaminants so your lungs don't have to. This includes allergens, pollen, pet dander, dust mites, mold spores, and even bacteria and viruses. Air Doctor comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you don't love it, just send it back for a refund minus shipping. Head to airdoctorpro.com and use promo code LAST, and you'll receive up to $300 off air purifiers. Exclusive to podcast customers, you'll also receive a free 3-year warranty on any unit, which is an additional $84 value. Lock this special offer by going to airdoctorpro.com and use promo code LAST. In order to fully understand the tragic life of DJ AM, it's instructive to go all the way back to his childhood in Philadelphia. His parents were unable to conceive naturally and had adopted AM's older sister, Laura, a year before his birth. His mother then left her husband temporarily after she caught him having an extramarital affair with a man, at which time she commenced an affair herself and became pregnant with Adam. Goldstein would later say his father verbally abused him for much of his early life, probably due to some deep-seated resentment that Goldstein was not, in fact, his biological son. He said his father also openly used cocaine and marijuana, and Adam began to combat feelings of depression by overeating, eventually becoming very obese by the age of 10. He also began drinking alcohol by age 11. His father was imprisoned for bank fraud when he was around 14 years old, and AM relocated to Los Angeles with his mother and sister around this time. And it was in Los Angeles that his drug problem started to really spiral out of control, prompting his mother to send him to a drug rehab program. But rather than address his addiction issues, Goldstein later said he was physically assaulted by the staff while there for treatment. And to compound that trauma, he then learned his father, who was not his biological father again, was dying from AIDS and ended up dying just a year later. I really lay this out, Jason, because this was a man's life that was filled with trauma from the very inception. He had a very tumultuous relationship with his biological father. His mother then brings he and his sister to LA, hoping to start this new life. But instead, what it did was it exposed DJ AM to the music scene, and it was rife with drugs. And when you combine those two elements, it was just overwhelming for him.
Yeah, I think what becomes clear when you read about DJ AM's life, Derek, was that the music industry was both his salvation and his curse. I mean, DJing was clearly a creative outlet for his passions, which he developed after seeing that Herbie Hancock performance you talked about at the Grammys as an impressionable 11-year-old. But the rave culture came with lots of drugs, ranging from marijuana and nitrous oxide to harder drugs like MDMA, ecstasy, and cocaine, which offered a way for him to numb himself to the painful memories of his childhood. Despite intermittent bouts of sobriety, his life was consumed by DJing and drug use, and he started to develop a strong reputation for his skills behind the turntable. He met Shifty Shellshock on the nightclub scene and joined the group Crazy Town in 1999, even showcasing his talents on the huge 2000 hit Butterfly.
Come my lady, come my lady, you're my butterfly, sugar, baby. Come my lady, come my lady, you're my butterfly, sugar, baby.
He quit the group in 2001 due to the drug-related dysfunction among the members and tried to get his life on track as a private DJ. He got his weight under control with gastric bypass surgery, dropping more than 100 pounds after getting up to around 324 pounds at one point. But you can't read that without just thinking again about addiction and what an addictive person this was. I mean, we know lots of people are addicted to drugs. Loads of folks are addicted to food as well.
People say you just shift your addictions to a new target. A lot of people get addicted to AA programs even afterwards, and they because it's ingrained in your personality to be addicted to something, and you try to channel it to something more productive.
Yeah. And after shedding his weight in 2003, he began dating Nicole Richie, daughter of Lionel Richie, best pal of Paris Hilton, and co-star of the smash reality show The Simple Life. By 2005, the couple was engaged, but later broke up in 2006. His career, however, took off after the high-profile relationship. DJ AM was ubiquitous presence in the young Hollywood scene of the 2000s, securing himself a $1 million contract at Caesar's Palace as the resident DJ of their hugely popular Pure nightclub, and popping up in cameos of some of the biggest shows on television, including Entourage.
Tell me you're going to size up nowadays, AM.
No dice, Turtle. I'm sorry, man. What's up, Vince?
Just trying to get my boy some sneaks. What's up?
It's doing better before you start negotiating, man. You know what I had to go through to get these? Not only do I have to spin this kid's sister's birthday party, I gotta have it in my club, LAX.
Look, Turtle's desperate for those shoes. Anything I can do?
I'm sorry, man. There's no dice. I've been waiting on these since Christmas, man.
I knew about him in November.
Man, you got me there. But I got these. Later, Vince.
Late.
At his peak, he was scratching on albums for Papa Roach, Will Smith, and Babyface, while playing private events for Jennifer Lopez, Ben Stiller, and other celebs for $10,000 to $25,000 every night. He even dated singer Mandy Moore for 2 months in 2007, proving that his star didn't dim after the breakup with Richie.
I wanted to point out the relationship with Richie is a big part of the DJ AM story. He got very famous because Paris and Nicole, as you know, you worked here during their heyday. They were extremely famous. They were in the reality scene. They were out with Lindsay Lohan. They had this whole coterie of people, and he was right in the mix of that. And everyone thought that when Nicole Richie broke up with him, DJ AM would maybe fade into obscurity. That didn't happen. He got even more famous, and I put in the Mandy Moore moment because here's another big starlet who starts dating DJ AM after the Nicole Richie saga.
One of the things that I think DJ AM taught me in following his, post-crash life in that year, taught me, and then after his death, is how famous and wealthy DJs are. I mean, there's rumors even before Calvin Harris dated Taylor Swift, he was making $40 million a year. Steve Aoki, those same kinds of numbers. I don't think we have the yearly figures for DJ AM, but I think we're talking about those tens of millions of dollars annually kind of money that he was raking in.
And to your point, that was part of the desire that fueled his wanting to go back into DJing right after the plane crash. Obviously, you do these things for mixed motives to sort of suppress the trauma that you've experienced and just get back to work. A lot of people say, I just want to put it behind me and move on. So he would take all these medicines so he could go do these gigs, but they were also quite lucrative. They were paying for his fabulous life. He would go to Vegas.
Well, the private jets, the whole thing.
Private jets. And so...
And then also it allowed him, to date some of the most famous and beautiful people in the world. And he clearly enjoyed that, as well as, again, just a man with such profound addictions, but the drugs and the weight and everything else. He also loved the limelight, and he loved being famous. This was a guy who, at every opportunity, dated the most famous people he could, played at the most successful clubs in the world, stayed at the high-profile hotels, and flew on the private jets. He loved the life of being a celebrity, and, that's the life he chose. Obviously, it ended up killing him, I guess.
You're right. Look, he loved the life, but I wanted to make sure to emphasize that he wasn't a person without substance. This kid was really talented.
Yes.
And if you're not familiar with the art of DJing, it would be easy to just dismiss him as another overhyped artifact from the 2000s celebrity scene, elevated only by that association with Nicole Richie. But that would really ignore his true skill and artistry when it came to mixing music. Take a listen to this clip of him scratching out a track with Oasis's Wonderwall behind it. You can really hear the artistry of what he's doing on full display here. It's truly transformative. It taps into the nostalgia for that original track. You hear Wonderwall, and it evokes certain memories in people of a certain age, but he completely updates it and makes it sound fresh and original. AM was a guy who surely indulged in the excesses of celebrity culture and the LA lifestyle, but it's really foolish to dismiss him as just a talentless party boy. He clearly brought a dedication to this craft that influenced the art form moving forward. And even Eminem, who is a music connoisseur and really never passes on an opportunity to knock someone down a few pegs if he thinks that they're beneath him or sort of just a Hollywood playboy, actually paid tribute to AM in his 2010 song, Talking to Myself.
I'm back with a vengeance, homie. Weezy, keep your head up. T.I., keep your head up. Kanye, keep your head up. Don't let up, just keep slaying them. Rest in peace to DJ, cause I know what it's like. I struggle with this shit every single day, and
And I think that it's a very telling moment that when you get a compliment from Eminem, who is usually dishing out lots of insults, it tells you that he respects you as an artist.
Yeah.
He doesn't respect many people.
I'm actually thinking back about last week's episode about Juice WRLD very different artists, obviously, AM and Juice WRLD, but I think both of them were distinctive and disruptive, and that's the kind of person that Eminem respects.
That's right.
Both of them geniuses in their own respective fields, but to your point, Eminem is
Stingy with compliments.
Well, stingy with compliments and easy with an insult, and so the
right.
fact that that AM got this kind of compliments from him is a big deal.
Yeah. And when you take a step back and look at the totality of DJ AM's all too brief life, the most profoundly tragic part for me was his self-awareness and raw honesty about the disease of addiction and his nearly 20-year battle to overcome it. His story is very different than people like Amy Winehouse and Chris Farley, who seem to almost build their entire identity around the alcohol and drug-fueled excesses to the point of resisting the many efforts of friends and family to help them get it under control. DJ AM knew the power of his demons and worked tirelessly to overcome them, writing eloquently about his own struggles, and even committing himself to helping others with addiction issues until his very final moments. And he was winning that battle for a significant part of the last years of his life until the plane crash derailed all that progress and ultimately allowed the disease to rear its ugly head. Goldstein's excellence in the DJ booth and his addiction issues are truly the twin pillars of his legacy. Can't really talk about one without the other, as both elements are woven into the fabric of his entire life. And so I thought it only fitting to give DJ AM himself the final word, heard here talking about his own struggle with addiction and his sincere desire to help others overcome it through a television project called Gone Too Far that aired shortly after his death.
Honestly, it's terrifying. I mean, I am a recovering drug addict, and I'm around, when I see it and I'm in their room and the paraphernalia and the whole lifestyle and everything, I still 11 years later have that little thing in my head that starts thinking, oh, where's that? I wonder what that is. And I look at it in this way, and I have to, constantly, remind myself why I'm here and remember what it was like. And there's no better way to remember what it was like when I was at my bottom than to see someone at their bottom. I mean, I guess I get why they call it post-trauma, because it was very tough, and I have really bad days and I have okay days, it's strange, but I mean, I'm blessed, I'm alive, I'm here.